The internet is used by roughly 5 billion people, or around 66% of the world's population. If you are watching this video, you are included within that statistic. Whether for leisure or for work, the internet is an integral part of modern life. And yet, chances are, you might not know exactly how it works, which makes sense. Something that's marketed for its convenience and reliability wouldn't benefit much from lifting the hood and showing the average consumer the inner workings. After all, why should we care? If it works well, it doesn't really matter what goes on underneath. Well, not quite. Even something as intangible as the internet has a more direct effect on your life and the world around you than you might think. And while there are many factors to this, today we will be focusing on one: data. The data that we generate and use on a daily basis doesn't just float around until we need it. It's stored somewhere, in a data center. These can be thought of as the internet, but materialized. And these data centers are physical locations. As of 2024, Google reports having data centers in 25 different locations worldwide. But these data centers don't run themselves. As you can imagine, what is essentially a warehouse full of computers uses up a lot of resources. And it's this constant usage that we need to be concerned about. To help illustrate the real-world impact of running a data center and the impact it might have on you, let's build a hypothetical data center along with a hypothetical plot of land. We will call it Dataville. Here is where we will house the facilities needed to maintain our data center and where we will track the potential effect on the surrounding environment. To begin, let's look at the first major resource needed to run a data center: energy. As you might expect, energy is quite vital to running a data center. In 2022, data centers consumed 460 terawatt hours of electricity. This equates to roughly 2% of the entire world's energy usage. What's more, this number is expected to more than double by 2026, reaching over 1,000 terawatt hours just to power data centers. To put this in perspective, the entirety of the United States consumed about 4,000 terawatt hours of electricity in 2023, with this number being a record high. Now, this electricity has to come from somewhere, and unfortunately, the most reliable source of electricity right now is fossil fuels. 62% of the world's electricity is generated through the use of fossil fuels. Renewable resources are being installed at record speeds, but despite this, the amount of fossil fuels being burned for energy keeps increasing year by year. In essence, renewable resources are not currently able to keep up with the demand for electricity, so emissions for electricity continue to grow worldwide as we burn oil, coal, and gas to keep up with the demand. So, in our hypothetical plot of land, let's go ahead and place a power plant, as well as an oil refinery to supply that power plant. This contributes greatly to things like air pollutants, such as toxic metals and gases, which contribute not only to overall ozone pollution, but air quality as well. In terms of the health of our Dataville citizens, they are more likely to experience developmental and reproductive issues alongside respiratory conditions such as asthma. Soil and water are contaminated as well, with much of the ground and surface water containing oil residuals, and the soil being so toxic that it becomes a danger to consume crops grown in the region. Now, let's take a look at the other resource needed to run our data center: water. Water in data centers is used to cool down the facility. As you might expect, a box of constantly running computers generates a lot of heat. For the same reason your computer might have an internal fan, these data centers need a means of getting rid of this heat to keep themselves running. While there are a few ways that this is done, a good amount of them involve water, and a lot of it. Google, one of the bigger companies that pushes their desire to work in a sustainable manner, has data centers that, on average, use roughly 450,000 gallons of water every day. And this is actually on the lower end. Large data centers can use between 1 and 5 million gallons a day, depending on the technologies used to cool them down. Not only do these facilities need a lot of water, they need a lot of clean water. So, back in Dataville, let's go ahead and build up a water treatment plant as well. On top of additional energy usage, this plant will produce hydrogen sulfide and methane as byproducts, while introducing harmful chemicals like ammonia and chlorine, as well as microplastics into the environment through the treatment process. Now, our hypothetical Dataville is prepared to sustain our hypothetical data center at the cost of the local environment and the general livability of the space. Now, you might be thinking, why do we care? Dataville isn't real, and these health and environmental hazards would never be placed anywhere near where people are living. But that isn't quite true, because Dataville is a real place. To be specific, Dataville is really in Colorado, zip code 80216, the most polluted zip code in America. Eight zero two one six is composed of Globeville, Elyria Swansea, and Cole. You may be wondering, why choose to build these facilities in the middle of a residential area? In truth, this was likely an intentional move and helps to illustrate not just the environmental impact of computation, but the social and political impacts as well. In the early 1870s, the smelters were moved from the mountains to be closer to the railroads. This included the Globe smelter, which gave the modern neighborhood its name. And these smokestacks continued to emerge along the railroad, filling the air of Globeville with a constant black smog. In fact, industrialization is such a central part of this region that the city seal itself features a smokestack. If you were looking for a place to live, this region might be the last place on your list. However, if you were looking for work, Globeville happened to be perfect. This means that a lot of immigrants that needed jobs would settle in Globeville, and their families still live there to this day. With a large density of individuals looking for work, heavy industrialization, and easy access to the rail system, it served as a perfect setting for further industrialization. Now, let's take a look at the modern-day Globeville and surrounding area. We still have a high minority population that works in manufacturing. The land continues to be abused by the lasting effects of industrialization, and instead of just railroad tracks, we now have a major highway running right through the center. Still, a perfect setting for further industrialization. That is, if you don't care about the people living there. Parallels between Dataville and 80216 don't stop at just the types of buildings that exist. Remember all of those potential health risks that I mentioned? Those were real too. Residents of 80216 have been warned against planting crops in the soil since, due to the factories, it was simply too toxic to be safe, and the air quality has been proven to be a detriment to the health of the residents. The Suncor refinery, or our Dataville oil refinery, releases thousands of tons of hydrogen cyanide into the air every year. Literal poison, all to sustain industrial and technological advancements. In a book written by Tung Hue Hu, explaining the prehistory of the cloud, he explains how new and old medias are layered on top of each other, like how fiber optic cables used for the internet are laid right where railroad tracks used to be. Here, we can see a similar phenomenon, where modern industrialization is placed upon pre-existing foundations. This means that those suffering from the ill effects of modernization are the same people that were subject to it in the past. It is easy to see the internet and computation as a new technology, a far cry from the more primitive methods of the past. However, if we want to think about computation in a responsible way, it might be more effective to recognize the influence of the past on the present. Look at the world around you and recognize that the actions we take now are laying the foundation for the future.